my second to last year with the Rockies, I got called up to play in AAA to come in and fill in for some injuries, and ended up playing well enough to stay the whole second half of the season. We had a road series in Oklahoma City, which is about 4 hours from here. So my whole family came and was playing there. I think there was about 30 people that I had to fit on the pass list, and I ended up hitting my first AAA home run the last day, and it was a pretty cool moment.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Noble Podcast. I'm Matt, and I'm very excited to be joined by today's guest, former infielder in the Colorado Rockies organization and current hitting and fielding instructor, LJ Hatch. LJ, really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for asking. I was excited when you sent the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, congrats on the new baby.
I appreciate it.
Bambi, right?
Bambi Ray, yeah.
Bambi, nice. 3 weeks, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 14 days, so right at 2 weeks.
We're at 2 weeks. It's going well.
It is. It's going fast. It's kind of crazy. Taylor's parents were here for 2 weeks, and then they are gone now. So now it's just us, and
yeah,
we're getting the hang of it.
I remember those days. Hopefully, you're getting some sleep here and there.
Trying to.
Yeah. All right.
2 hours at a time.
Yeah, I remember those days. But there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Just when you think it's not going to get any better, it gets better. So, hang in there. Yeah. So let's dive in. I want to start with your college career. You initially went the JUCO route, right?
Yeah. Yep. Went to Johnson County after my time at Mill Valley, and then spent 2 years there, and then went to New Mexico State, and yeah, the JUCO to the D1 route.
Yeah. So how was the JUCO experience for you? I know there's not necessarily a negative connotation, but I know a lot of kids coming up, they're like, I've got to go to a 4-year school. I've got to go to D1. A lot of high aspirations, but how was that, the JUCO route for you, and what was that experience like?
I think it was perfect for me. Coming out of high school, I wasn't very highly recruited. A lot of that was my fault. Grades weren't that great, but so I kind of knew that it was going to be JUCO for me. I didn't really have any opportunities at the Division I level, but I kind of knew that I was a Division I player, just not at that time. And so, it was pretty easy going down the street to Johnson County. They didn't do very well the years prior, but the recruiting class that we had with me, Anthony Miller, Alec Alvarez, Ben Galvano, people from around the area that, we played against coming up. We had a lot of area guys that went to Johnson County and really, really flipped the script over there, and had a really, really good team both years. Went to the JUCO World Series our freshman year, and then came up just short our sophomore year. But we were super talented. We had Division I guys up and down our roster, and it made it a lot of fun just being around a lot of guys that were from around here, and just kind of building the program up. And now they're kind of a JUCO powerhouse now. So I thought it was perfect for me. Gave me a lot of time to develop there, because there's they can practice all day if they want, and so it gave me the number of reps that I kind of needed to be consistent enough to play at the Division I level.
Sure. Yeah. So, you said you weren't really highly recruited out of high school. What was that process like, being recruited, from JUCO? You said you went on to play at New Mexico State. I think there's a lot of kids, these days, who are recruited out of high school or looking to be recruited. And so they sort of have an idea of what that process looks like. But what did that look like for you coming out of JUCO, and then moving on to New Mexico State?
So I mean, from high school to JUCO was pretty easy. Just went on a couple visits. Ended up choosing Johnson County because it was right down the street. But once it came time, so I did have a little bit of interest from St. Louis University and a couple others after my freshman year, but I was pretty committed to being at Johnson County for 2 years. Just because everybody else was staying and thought we could do something pretty cool the second year. And then after that, I mean, it was a little different in the fact that there was a lot more attention that was brought to our team. One of my good buddies, Anthony Miller, he's a coach at Wichita State now. He was, in my eyes, the best player in the country at the JUCO level. I think he was behind Willie Calhoun. If anybody knows who that is, he was runner up to him for JUCO Player of the Year. So he brought a lot of attention, and him and I actually went on a visit to New Mexico State together, and I ended up committing there first, and then he followed, but ended up getting drafted, so he didn't go. But basically, I mean, they came out and were watching Anthony play first base, and Joel Mangrum, the recruiting coordinator at New Mexico State, then kind of saw what I had to bring to the table, and he was like, we really want you as well, and they made me feel like they really really wanted me, and that they really saw me as a piece to the turnaround at New Mexico State, which I didn't get from the other schools that I had talked to or visited. So it was it was an easy decision in the moment. But yeah, it was much different coming out of JUCO than it was going into it.
Sure. Yeah, I love that little piece you had in there about they were there scoping out somebody else. I talk with my
Mm-hmm.
son often about, I tell him you never know who's watching.
Mm-hmm.
You never know who sees you play. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I love hearing that. What in your mind were the biggest differences between JUCO and Division One? Was there a big difference in um, everything from training to even, the game itself? Was it a big adjustment or a big difference?
So I think the main difference, and I think it's kind of true for every level of baseball, is that there's more of the everything's on you. You know when you're talking about player development, getting your reps in, taking care of your body, stuff like that. Like every step that you take, whether it's high school to college to pro, whatever it is, there's going to be more of that put on your shoulders instead of, making sure that, you just show up at practice because coach scheduled practice at that time. And that was probably the major difference, because everybody was talented, everybody in the Division I level can play. The best players are the most consistent, that goes for every level as well. So it's just kind of, it was different in the fact that I had to really, be honest with myself and, take a look at my skill set, things that I was not very good at, and figure out a way to, make them a little bit better, and make sure that I, came back every year a different player, and in a good way. And that was kind of the biggest difference. But when it comes to like playing wise, like competition wise, the pitching's more consistent. They're a little bit more refined. It's not as fastball heavy, I would say. Well, it was when I played, but it's different now. But for me, the pitching was the biggest difference. It was a little bit better. You know what I mean? And obviously, hitters are better, so the games are just much tighter. The margin for error is much less in those games.
Yeah, sure. So was it a crazy adjustment for you? You just kind of step right in and
Um, so I was able to actually get a temporary contract to go play in the Northwoods League after my second after my last year at Johnson County. So I went to Wausau, Wisconsin, and played in the Northwoods League, which is mostly younger Division I players going to get ready to go play Division I ball, and they sprinkle in some temporary contracts for guys in JUCO like myself, and I ended up playing myself into a full roster spot for the whole year. So I think that kind of helped me kind of bridge that gap a little bit quicker. I did well. I did okay. You know what I mean? My first year,
sure.
and I wouldn't say that I was at a disadvantage. It was just a different ball game, and the adjustment's a little slower, especially when we're talking about a game like baseball. But the transition from junior year to senior year was probably my biggest, just because I had to figure out my body a little bit more, get stronger, get faster. Because I had really good coaches at New Mexico State. I had Brian Green as a head coach, who's now the head coach at Wichita State. Joel Mangrum, he was the pitching coach, recruiting coordinator. Mike Brown, who's at I believe Utah now. But they did a really good job of making sure everybody knew what they needed to do to get better and have a chance to play professional baseball. So
Sure.
I had to go through that adjustment. It was more of a mental adjustment on my end, and just kind of a growing up moment that kind of made me a much better player my senior year.
Nice. So you were at New Mexico State for 2 years, correct?
Yep.
And then you were drafted?
So I was undrafted
You were undrafted.
out of New
Okay.
Mexico State. Yep.
Gotcha. So how did that work out? You ended up in the Rockies organization, correct?
Yep. So at the end of my senior year, I had a really good season. It was much better than my junior year. I felt I showed enough to at least get a shot at playing professional ball somewhere. The draft came by. I was actually on my way home from school with all my stuff, and was going through kind of watching the draft happen. Was talking to people, and people will tell you like, hey, like we're gonna look at taking you, which ends up just being, they may not. So my name didn't get picked, unfortunately. But luckily for me, I had a 14-hour drive to kind of think about what to do moving forward. Made phone calls to everybody, including my coaches at Johnson County, coaches at New Mexico State, and they really guided me well, and they just let me know, like, if you need to let these people know that you still want to play if you really want a shot at playing. So I reached out to every scout that had emailed my dad, or sent me a letter, emailed me, texted me, spoken to me, and let them know, hey, like, if anything comes up, I'm ready, and I would love an opportunity. And so I signed up to play with a team out of the Mink League in Nevada, Missouri, and ended up being there a couple months, just kind of staying ready and playing and getting at bats. And one day, one of the scouts from New Mexico that I had been talking to from the Rockies called me, and he had asked me if I was still playing and all this stuff. And I told him, yeah, I've been playing since this league started. And he told me that he may have an opportunity for me, but to stay by my phone. And So right after that, I called Brian Green at New Mexico State, told him, called Kent Shelley, our head coach at Johnson County, told him, and let them know what was going on. And a couple hours later, the farm director for the Rockies gave me a call, and 2 days later, I was on a plane headed to rookie ball.
Wow, that's
So
crazy.
yeah,
That's quite a story. So yeah, how does that work? Did they just call you and say, "We need you to be here at this time," and show up with
yeah,
all your stuff and be ready to go?
yeah. It was nuts because I didn't really know what was going on the phone when Forbes called me, and he kind of just went through where the affiliates were and what the process is to the big leagues. Because everybody that gets signed to affiliated ball, they there's a path to the big leagues for everybody. Now it's not the same for everybody, but he made sure that I knew where all the affiliates were, and what that path looked like. And I was too caught up listening and trying to think of what I was going to say, that I was like, wait, hold up, like I've got a I've got a plane ticket. Like, where am I going? And I kind of figured out during the phone call that he, had offered me a contract, and that I was going to go to Boise in 2 days. So it's a quick turnaround, but it's pretty exciting. It was probably one of the coolest phone calls of my life. So
Yeah, that's a super cool story. So in the Rockies organization, what levels did you end up playing at throughout that experience?
I played at every level. So back then, there was two rookie ball teams, one in Boise, one in Grand Junction. There's a low A in Asheville, a high A in Lancaster, double A in Hartford, and then triple A in Albuquerque. And I played at every single one of those. It's um, Fresno, Spokane, Hartford, and Albuquerque. So they got rid of two teams in
Gotcha.
that time. So I played
Yeah,
for all of them.
gotcha. Yeah. So do you have any, sort of memorable moments or highlights from your pro career that stand out to you?
Yeah, I had, there's some pretty cool moments. I actually, my second to last year with the Rockies, I got called up to play in AAA to come and fill in for some injuries, and ended up playing well enough to stay the whole second half of the season. We had a road series in Oklahoma City, which is about 4 hours from here. So my whole family came, and was playing there. Um, I think there was about 30 people that I had to fit on the pass list, and um, I ended up hitting my first AAA home run um, the last day, and it was a pretty cool moment. I have it
Yeah,
all
that's
on
amazing. So
video, and
you've got
yeah,
30 friends and family there and you hit your first AAA
yeah,
home run.
yeah,
Wow,
it was
yeah,
pretty crazy.
that's super cool. So we touched on it a little bit between JUCO and D1. What's sort of the training and workload like at the pro level versus what your experience was in college?
It was pretty drastically different, going from being in school, having to be somewhere all the time during the fall, during the winter, in the summer, to whereas once you become a professional, there's nobody. You're all on your own. So you got to figure out where you're going to work out. How you're going to pay for it. Where you're going to hit, and all that sort of stuff. So you take control over your career, 100% at that point. So training was much different. I think I went, I lived three different places during my pro career. So I changed facilities a few times, um, where I would work out and hit, and you gotta figure out a place that's you can afford to go to, because back then, minor leaguers weren't making much money, so you had to figure out what you were doing, where you were doing it, and basically just trying to figure out different ways that you can get better, because those off season months fly by, and spring creeps up on you sometimes. So yeah, it was completely different in the fact that you had to take control. They weren't always um, clear as to they weren't. It's not their job to tell you what you need to improve on the next year to make it to the big leagues, because I mean, everybody there's at that time there's 200 minor league players, you know, and so you had to make sure that you came back different the next year than you were the year before, and that's kind of how I made it a pretty long career out of it. Honestly, being an undrafted free agent.
Sure, yeah. So obviously a big part of the Noble brand revolves around hitting. And so I'm always intrigued by players hitting routines and work routines in the cage. Can you talk a little bit about what, back when you were in pro ball, what your sort of hitting routine looked like when you were, on that daily grind, putting in the work?
Yeah, so I mean, the typical daily layout in pro ball, you'd probably get to the field around 1 or 2 every day, and then you have your optional cage times to where you can go in, do your drills, um, kind of work on some things if you need to, depending on how you're feeling that day or not. Then you have kind of the BP and team defense for an hour, and then you're kind of chilling again, and then you can hit right before the game. So you have options to kind of make it whatever. Being in the role that I played the majority of my career, I had to make sure that I got you know enough reps each day to make sure that when I got the chance to play that week that I was ready, whether that's doing machine, or just kind of chilling when, I'm playing 6 days a week. So my role flipped a little bit as my career went on, to where I would go, playing 2 or 3 games a week, to where I had to make sure that, those days that I wasn't playing, that I was in the cage getting swings. And then there's times where, I'm playing 6 days a week for 3 weeks, to where I'm not even swinging a bat before the games at some points. So,
Sure.
I was a big, reps guy most of my career, but as I got older, um, it was more kind of just making sure it's simple, because that helped me the most. And I would kind of get bored and go into the cage and swing. So
Sure. At that level, is there much instruction going on? Or is it kind of, if you're asking for it, you'll get some help? Or how does it, I'm sure every organization's a little different, but how was that for you?
yeah, so I mean, it really depended on your relationship with your hitting coach. If you've got a good relationship with them and you communicate with them, what some things that you've worked on previously, whether that's they heard it from another coach or heard it straight from you. They know, like, they see what they see, and they're gonna give you advice here and there. But there's a lot of instruction, but then there's also not very much at all. Just because, I mean, when you're playing 100 games a year, if you're trying to tweak things every other day, you're going to put yourself into a mental hole that is going to turn into an over 20, when it could be as simple as just eliminating stress. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of good instruction throughout the uh, the minor leagues for the Rockies, for the most part, with me. So
So yeah, so you're now doing you're a hitting instructor yourself now. Do you sort of have any overarching philosophies when it comes to hitting? anything that, is sort of um, your focus as an instructor?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm like I would say that I'm a blend of old school and new school. I recently played and professionally, so I know how to, I know what the analytics, the numbers, what they mean, what the story that they tell. But I'm also a very traditional, you know, the best hitters hit the ball in the barrel the most. It's worked forever. You see the guys in the big leagues, they have 1,000 different ways to do the same thing. And, especially in a time where, there's 1,000 hitting gurus on Instagram, telling you that, doing this will add X amount of exit velocity to your swing. When it comes time for you to get into the box and compete against the pitcher, like, are you even going to use that, or is it, gonna is that going to help you? You know what I mean? So basically, I try to find the different things with each one of my hitters and figure out what the movements that they make and how that is either helping them or making it harder for them to put the barrel on the ball, especially when it's moving fast. Because I love machine. I think, you got to hit some velocity machine, often just to make sure that it's somewhat realistic. You know what I mean? Because, you go a whole off season hitting underhand flips, it's gonna change the second you step in a batter's box against a guy. So I'm pretty simple. You know, I don't you know I don't teach a bunch of crazy stuff. I just try to eliminate anxiety and stress in the box for my hitters, and try to help them just put more barrels on the ball, because the more you do that, you know the more of a chance that you have at scoring runs for your team. So
Sure. Yeah, you touched on it there for a second. We're in this day and age of there's a thousand gurus online. Uh, do you see kids or people coming to you? Are there any commonalities with issues that you see right now that kids even high school age kids that have picked up, or is there a trend right now with issues that you see kids coming in?
I would say, for the most part, what I see the most, it's not really like a mechanical thing. I just think everybody tries to force too much when they swing the bat. You know what I mean? It's, when you go to a big league game, like, one of the most mind blowing things that you see with those guys that it looks like they're not even trying in the box. You know what I mean? So they're very under control. Now, granted, they have extremely high velocity coming at them, and so they don't have to create anything. They just have to put the barrel on it. And I think as you get older, the pitches start coming in faster and faster and faster. And when you're 8 years old, you've got to create the power. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes kids catch on to it, and some, kind of keep trying, the max effort swing, with a person who can put two or more pitches in the zone at different speeds. Like, if you're max effort, you're going to trick yourself into seeing something early that's not necessarily what you're getting. And it just, it puts a lot of stress on your body, for one. Easy to get hurt doing that,
Sure.
in the long run. But, like, you don't let your eyes work as well when you're max effort, because your whole thought process is how am I going to move my body to get as much bat speed as possible to try to just run into this pitch. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that would be what I would say. You know what I mean? It causes a lot of directional issues. Just the fact that, you know a lot of kids are working out of control all the time.
Got it. Yeah. We have to do it. Let's touch on bats for just a second. You're sort of a generation removed from the bats today and what the kids are using today. Do you have any favorite bats from back in the day when you were playing? I guess specifically, um, maybe college and then high school era.
So high school, I the one that sticks out to me the most was the old Exo grids from Louisville Slugger TPX. Those ones were pretty good when I was probably a freshman. I think maybe a couple years after that, but then they kind of died out. Dean Rainey started kind of taking over a little bit more. In college, I had a surefire favorite, and it was called the Raid by TPX in Louisville, which I think is they call it the Select Power now.
Yeah.
It was kind of the same bat, but it had like a sandpaper finish on it. So I felt like that helped put backspin on the ball.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it makes
it
sense.
may
Yeah, for
it may
sure.
have it may didn't. I don't know, but I love that bat. I had it in JUCO, and then wasn't able to use it because we were in Adidas school in New Mexico, and then the next year we kind of switched out of that, and I found one and ended up using it at the end of the year
Nice.
and
Yeah,
loved
I mean,
that
half
bat
the battle is being confident, right?
for sure.
Even if it didn't help the backspin, if you felt like it did, then
Yeah,
that's all that matters,
no,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
How about wood bats when you moved on to your pro career? Were you what were you swinging? Were you balanced guy or more of an in-loaded bat?
Um, so when I started out, I liked balance, like your traditional 271s. And then as I kind of got into it more and started being able to buy my own bats, I really liked the NA 28, the Nolan Arenado model.
Hmm.
I thought that had a little bit more in load to it that I liked, and I used that most of my career. Was the Nolan Arenado model?
Yeah, that's can't go wrong with that one. All right, let's put a bow on this thing. Who's winning the World Series this year?
Oh man. Well, it's hard to say not the Dodgers with the offseason
For sure. Yeah.
that they've had, especially combined with the offseason a couple of years ago. It's hard to not pick them. Um, but I don't know. I think the Yankees are going to be in a better spot than they were last year. I think they did a good job with pitching. So, but I mean, I'm sure some other team will come out of there. Hopefully, the Royals. You know, they got some playoff experience under their belt. You know, are still building. So hopefully, it can be them. But
Sure. Yeah, they're going to be sneaky good this year, I think.
yeah, for
They're
sure.
they're still it seems like they're still making some moves this offseason, so
Yeah, they
the
just signed Carlos Estevez was an
yeah,
old Rocky, and I think he's going to be a good addition to the back end of the bullpen. Gives you another guy that can shut down one inning there at the end of the game. So,
for sure. All right, anything in heavy rotation on your Spotify right now?
ooh, not really, not really listening to much music. I think the last thing that me and my wife listened to were Blink 182 nursery rhymes.
Oh, there you go.
So
Yeah, it's amazing how life changes, right?
it is pretty funny. She found that and it was pretty funny. Kind of
That's good.
listening to that.
Yeah, I
So
love that. All right, LJ, thanks so much for joining this evening. I greatly appreciate you taking a bit of time out of your busy schedule. Everyone go follow LJ on Instagram at littlejohn_hatch. And then where if people are interested in working with you as a hitting coach, where can they find you?
they can, obviously reach out via Instagram. I will be launching a website here soon with my business website called the Lab KC Player Development. That'll be inside of Kansas City Strength and Conditioning. So I'll be posting that that website here soon, and it should make it a lot easier for people to sign up and schedule. So
Fantastic. LJ, thanks so much.
thank you.
All right, see you.